Welcome back. And last time we covered my portfolio from high school all the way through Art Institute, all the way to ArtCenter through college. So all of my educational experience we covered in part one. And you can see how I transitioned from this person who is pretty shy, pretty sheltered, and a little closed up to somebody who felt very, very confident now entering the work market. So you might be wondering, what does this have to do with you? And I wanted to show you in part one how crappy I was as a young artist, as a young designer who didn't really know what he wanted. I didn't have a clear plan, a clear path to go to market, to start working. I kind of felt my way around. And what I want to show you in this now is showing my transition from somebody who is very insecure and quiet and shy to somebody who is now entering the market very confident, and showing how I navigated from owning my own business to freelancing to becoming staff creative director at a company. So I'm hoping that you can see my massive arc in my career to show you that I'm not even done yet. I haven't even arrived. I'm still a work in progress. And all of this, you can see how it's added up, how it's shaped who I am today, and where it might take me. Let's time travel back to 2007 when I graduated from ArtCenter. The world was my oyster, and I am ready to go conquer it. So let's look at that time period then. You know, as a student at ArtCenter, while I was in school, I was already getting work. What I didn't really get into is that with the peers around me, we developed a little bit of a collective, a little artist collective. So it was me, Chris Reel, Jaron Hoy, Michael Relf, Brendan Wyeth, and Aaron Bjork. So we had 6 of us all together, people that were always working together in the labs, kind of grinding it out. And we started to collaborate and started doing projects together. At one point, it might have been 7th term, right before we graduated, and we said, hey, why don't we make this into a collective? So we formed this collective and we were looking for a name. I said, what if we call our collective Born? You're like, oh, I like that. It represents birth. It represents something new, something fresh. And I think it just clicked for all of us. So we decided to call our collective Born. One of our inspirations at the time was actually Greg Gunn, who also works at Blind. Greg Gunn, a year before in 2006, had graduated with 2 of his colleagues, and they've also formed a collective called 3-Legged Legs. Right out of college, they started their own company and they got repped as directors. And so that was so inspiring for us because we thought if they could do it over at Otis, we could do it over here at ArtCenter. And because we had that rivalry. And I know Chris Doe, when I was taking his class, he would brag about them to our class at ArtCenter because all 3 of them were his students. So because there was that example of somebody else who had done this, coming from just being a student that graduated to starting their own company, it's like, dude, we could do this. So the kind of work we were doing at the time was an extension of what we were doing in school. We just wanted to do more of that. It was this fun mixed media approach of 3D animation, 2D animation, cell animation, practical effects, stop motion, filming with different film stocks. Like all of this stuff was so exciting at the time, and motion design was so ripe for that because it allowed for the mix of all these different mediums. We just wanted to do more of that, and we wanted that to be a staple of our studio. We wanted to be known for that, to be able to mix these things up. When we graduated college and we decided to go all in on Born, first thing we did is we cut a reel and made a website. So this was our reel. So that was our reel intro there. It says Born. And these are a bunch of mostly school projects at this point. So these are all the things that we're working on as a collective, but you can see there's a big mix of 3D stuff, 2D animation, cell animation. You can see a lot of the collage stuff that I was into, that Chris Reel was also into, made its way in here. And you could see that this is a pretty fresh and funky style. If you look at MTV and VH1 at the time, a lot of it looked like this. It had this kind of flair and style to it, and we wanted to add to the conversation. So this was our reel. This is what we put out there as our breakout. It's like, hey, we're Born and we're here. This is what we do. But this is the gig that we did right after college, and this was for Nissan. It was for a concept car called Pivo, and this was the second iteration of it, and this was for the Japanese, the Tokyo Auto Show. And we did this in collaboration with Adam Blooming, who was the director on there, and a couple of our other freelance friends. So we all kind of jumped in on this collective together, and they brought Born on to do a lot of the 3D animation here. There was this project, and it was for this record label. It was called D-Genetics. Hired us to create this promo video for their label and the artists that are on there. So our inspiration was to look at old 80s and 90s cartoons and paint these characters as if they're heroes. So this was super fun to work on. We collaborated with a director who did all the live action, and they came to us. It's like, can you add the graphics on top of this? So that was super fun. That was probably one of the cooler projects that we had done at the time. So we did stage graphics for Linkin Park, which was pretty cool. This was directed by Chris Reel, and we all did a couple of the shots in here, and it's pretty minimal, nothing really fancy. We were just showing off our 3D skills, and this was meant to be a backdrop behind the band, and it was for their song In Pieces. So the band would be playing in front of this massive screen, and then these graphics would be playing. So all the stuff, the operations part, took up so much of our time, and a lot less time was spent on the creative, and we didn't really realize that. So running the books, trying to manage clients and manage projects. We were hiring freelancers at the time. Luckily, there was 6 of us, and we were kind of sharing the load and passing responsibilities around to each other. But I felt like a lot of my time was focused on operations of the business. So learned a lot of things. There was a lot I didn't know, but I wouldn't figure that out until 2008. And in 2008, something happened. The housing market crashed here in the United States, and that had a ripple effect everywhere.
The NASDAQ opens everything. They are down 110 points on the NASDAQ.
This is going to be one of the watershed days in financial markets history.
It was a manic Monday in the financial market. So in just 6 months, 3 of the 5 biggest independent firms on Wall Street have now disappeared.
It's definitely a very, very difficult time, and it's not going to get better quickly.
We didn't feel it right away, but it eventually got to us. So we were coming from this high of all this work just dropping in our lap in 2007. Things were amazing. We're doing cool work, good clients. To all of a sudden, 2008, things started to feel a little grim. The phone slowly stopped ringing, less inquiries for work, and all of a sudden the work dried up. And it was a really weird place to be. And then we were scrambling like, shoot, how come we're not getting work? Maybe we should update our reel. Let's update our portfolio, because that's gonna fix it. It didn't. And we realized everything we didn't know about running a business, which is, how do you market yourself? How do you put yourself out there? And then how do you draw in leads? We didn't do any business development. And here we are. We've run our business and the market crashed. And we got punched in the face. And we realized everything we didn't know about running a business. And for me in particular, that was very hard, because there's this expectation of me, which I mentioned in part 1, that I have to be the best. I have to perform at a certain level. And now the market has humbled us way down here. It kind of kicked us in the butt and showed us everything we didn't know about running a business. So it was very tough. But at some point in 2009, we had a heart-to-heart with each other. We looked at each other and said, I know we started out on this journey to do this one thing, but we're barely paying rent. We're barely making any money here. We could be making more money if we just went elsewhere. And I think we all just knew at that point. It's like, it's time to close the doors. It's time to close the doors on this big dream that we had. And the market kicked our butt, and we weren't ready for it. So in 2009, we shut the doors and we decided to go our own ways. So at this point in my life, this was a huge failure. But it didn't stop me. I'm still alive, I'm still here, and I'm flourishing. that wouldn't be my last failure for my life. And if I let that stop me, if I let that stop my career, man, I don't know what I would be doing. I'd be probably pretty sad. But I share this with you guys to show you that even from closing a business, even in a down market, you can emerge from that and you can come out stronger, because where all of my bones had cracked and maybe broken, they got stronger. And those are things that I still carry with me to this day. So for those of you guys who might be experiencing failure right now, don't worry. You'll get through this and you're going to learn something from this. Whether you fail or you succeed, you're always going to learn from those moments. And failure is probably the best teaching tool, because it goes the deepest, it stings the hardest, but it will leave a scar on you that you're going to remember for the rest of your life. And that's not always a bad thing. It's just a good reminder of what it's like when you hit rock bottom, what it's like when the stars don't align and you aren't lucky, when a good decision turns out with bad results. These are all moments where you could learn from them, and it's humbling, and you need these moments in your life. Otherwise, you won't be prepared, because life only gets harder. And you need to have these failures to prepare you. Luckily, the motion design industry didn't completely crash. They all felt hurt, but there were still studios that survived. So the first person I called, I picked up the phone. I said, "Hey, Chris, do you have any freelance work available?" Luckily, he said yes, and I started working immediately at Blind. And this began my freelance career after closing my business. All right, so we're moving on to the next chapter of my life, which was in 2009. After I'd closed my business, Born, with my colleagues, I went back to the freelance world, and I entered in as a freelance motion designer, doing design style frames and animating on commercials. And at this time, I was 24 years of age, and I had just come out of this business with a lot of stress, a lot of this expectation and disappointment as a result of that expectation looming over me. And now I'm getting to this point in my life where it's like, man, that was a heavy weight to carry on my back, and I had just released it. So this next part of my life was all about letting go and releasing. And freelance was the best part of all of this, because now I could go around studio to studio, work in different places, see different people, start and stop whenever I want, and travel the world, do things on my free time that my business was previously occupying. And this is for Honda. It was a campaign called Happy Honda Days. They do this every year, and it's just their holiday campaign. So it's this fun stop motion commercial with a bunch of 3D. I was hired on as a compositor, and essentially what I did was take all these different plates, all the CG plates that were rendered out of Maya, took all the plates that they did on a live action shoot and sandwiched them all together and made them look good and clean and cohesive, so that the real world blended with the 3D world. Like this one I did over at Murata, or at the time they were called Motion Theory, but it was for Target. And it was for a campaign for parents to read to their children. So there was this live action shoot that they had done, and I was working on the team that was doing all the CG animation inside the book. So the book was tracked, and then we created this 3D world inside of the book. So that was a pretty fun campaign to work on. Very challenging, and it was nice to work on a very heavy VFX project like this, because I hadn't before. I worked on this promo for United States of Tara, which is a show about a woman who has multiple personalities. This was also with Tom Coe here at Blind. So the concept in here was this rotating cube where they filmed all the talent on green screen and kind of rotated the camera around them. But the idea is that every facet of this cube that rotates is a different side of this character. Since she has multiple personalities, which shows in the show, she shows that she has multicolors to herself. And that was the concept that we were playing with here. Super fun, very challenging, just to show this concept and how to pull this off. It wasn't perfect. You can see the tracking's not amazing on this thing, but it was very fun to figure out. And this was for Showtime. And then the last one that I have here, this one is for Discovery Channel. It was for the show Worst Case Scenario. It was a promo for it. And the whole idea was it's supposed to feel kind of like one of those guidebooks, where if you're a Boy Scout or something like that, and it shows you how to. This is popular in fishing guides and all that stuff. It's supposed to mimic those types of guides. So we did all the tracking and animation and design on top of this and made it feel like these were all overlays on top of Bear Grylls inside the worst case scenarios, because that was the whole premise of the show. They put him in the worst case scenario, and then he teaches you how he would survive in that situation. This period I really reserved for a lot of self-discovery, a lot of figuring out what I wanted out of a career, because I got to explore different studios and shops and understand different company cultures, different ways of working, and be a part of some really amazing projects. And I even got the chance to work on one of my favorite video game series of all times. So I played a very small role, I believe it was in 2010, where I got hired by a studio called Logan. They're here in LA. And we were working on Metal Gear Solid 4. That's one of my favorite video game franchises of all time. And we worked on the visual effects on some of the intro sequences. But it was one of those moments where it's like, I got to pause and say, wow, I'm so privileged that I get to work on this with all of these talented people around me on a project and game that I've loved since I was growing up as a kid. I think one of the key things I can attribute my success to as a freelancer was, while I'm at work, I'm giving 110%. And what I mean by that is that when I'm there and you have hired me for that day or for that week or for that month, I'm yours, and I'm totally focused on getting you what you need. And at the beginning of the day or beginning of the week, a director might come up to me and say, hey, I'd like you to design these 3 frames. At the end of that day, I might have 5 frames, because I show them, here's what you asked me to do, and I explored a little bit more with my free time. Here's what you asked for, and then here's some other things I thought up as a result of that. And I was trying to show my creativity, to show that I could add more to the conversation. And I did this quite often, actually, where they set an expectation and I exceeded it. Maybe this is in my nature of just wanting to do well. Maybe it's my competitiveness, or maybe it's because I just got humbled by the market running my business that crushed me, and I felt like, oh my gosh, I have to survive, so I have to do a little bit more. I have to do a little bit more. So maybe all of those things in conjunction came out in my work ethic, which was to over-deliver on the things that were asked of me. My initial goals and expectations after I returned to freelance was just to explore the world, just to let loose and not feel so committed to stuff. And I started bouncing around to different studios, working with amazing people. But after a while, I think I got a little bit bored of that. I started moving horizontally from place to place, just coming on as a hired gun. And I think I started to stagnate a little bit around 2011. At that point, I got a call from Mr. Christo here at Blind, and he had offered me a creative director position. I thought about it for a little while, and I was considering all my options, because the thing is, I was getting paid very well as a freelancer. I had a very good life as a freelancer. So I really had to consider, is this something that I want? Is this something that interests me? And after I thought about my career and this lateral movement and how much fun and how engaged I was on these very challenging projects where they brought me in to lead, I thought, there's something in there for me, and there's something that I'm missing from my freelance career right now. I should invest in that. And I think at that point I decided that I'm tired of moving horizontally and I'm ready to move up. I'm ready to move up to the next challenge. And that would be the next chapter in my life, where I became the staff creative director at Blind. Now I have left the freelance world. I have gone staff to become a young creative director at Blind at the age of 26. So I was going through this big transition where before I was just a hired gun, project to project, either doing the design and animation or both. And Blind at the time had already been testing me as an art director, kind of pushing me to lead because they could see those qualities in me. And I think Chris was looking to bring some young blood to the team to mix things up, probably to bring up a divergent or different way of thinking here to the studio because he could see my scrappiness. So it was very interesting because at the time, I thought I was going to be doing more of the same. I thought I was going to be doing the things that I was doing on some of my freelance project as an art director leading the team, but it was actually so much more than that, and I wasn't ready for the next couple of years of my life as a creative director. See, the thing is, I was really good at making. I was really good at animating. I was really good at designing at this point. And I was really good at just working with the team, just like being shoulder to shoulder and say, all right, I got this shot, you do this shot, we'll pass this back and forth, so on and so forth. The thing that I didn't realize and the big gap that I had to fill as a creative director is you should actually be doing a lot of managing. And this required a whole lot of soft skills that I didn't quite have yet. And this was the challenge that I had for the next couple of years as a young creative director. See, the thing is, I didn't know how to talk to clients. I didn't know how to delegate to a team. I had a really hard time figuring out how to articulate what was in my head to come out as words in my mouth so that somebody else might understand and act on that. I think it's really important to be able to communicate your thoughts because if you plan to do any kind of job where you're working with a team, you need to be able to explain to somebody why you're thinking what you're thinking, how they might get there, and what specifically they might be able to do so that they can take action. I think most creative people like to use these fun, big buzzwords like exciting and rad and cool, but those don't really mean anything if the person on the other side doesn't know what you're talking about, if they have their own interpretation of the word. So you need to be able to clearly define a goal, a set of parameters for that person to work within, so that at the end of the day or the end of the week, you have something that's usable, that's something that is addressing the challenge of the projects for the clients. So all you creative people out there, I know we're very good at doing this, learning how to use the tools and the techniques, but I encourage all of you to read and write and practice articulating your thoughts, because the more you do that, the more powerful you become as a communicator. And that's basically what we do. If you take away anything from all of my portfolio, is design is communication. And while my early years as a creative director here at Blind weren't that successful, luckily I had the space to fail. Luckily I had these opportunities where I quickly wanted to course correct them because I was very mindful of them. I wasn't ignoring my shortcomings. I was looking at them as a real thing, as something that I was lacking and something that I needed to develop. And I think this is something that I've realized looking back, is that every time I saw a gap in front of me between who I am and who I need to be or want to be, I saw that as opportunity, not as something that is getting in my way. And if anything, I want to give you guys that advice, is that look at those big gaps in front of you between your skill level now and where you want to be, or the job that you currently have and where you want to be, as an opportunity, as something to close and capture, because it's there for you if you want to get it. And I feel like I've experienced that through many cycles of my life, even here now as a creative director. Okay, so one of the first projects that I got to do as a creative director, I think it was in the winter of 2012, I believe. It was for this company called Finish, and they're a dishwashing detergent. And the agency had come to us with this idea. It's like, well, we want to make this thing where it's like an enchanted forest, and our magical product flies through the forest that's filled with dishes, and it cleans everything, it makes everything spotless. The next project was probably my favorite project of this time, and it was, I remember we got called up on a Thursday night, and the client was asking, hey, do you think you can send us a treatment for this video game project by Monday? Like, does that mean they want us to work the weekend? I'm not signing up for weekend work, but whatever. And they told us, well, it's for a big prominent video game, and all we can tell you is that it's about witches. I was the only one out of all the creative directors that wanted to pitch on this thing. I think everybody else was like, no, that sounds so speculative. That sounds so fishy. But I need stuff to do. Like, I need to practice. I just need to practice as a creative director. So I said, sure, you know what? I'll pitch. Let me toss in my hat. So we signed our NDAs. We signed all the paperwork. And they gave us more information. They said, this game is written by J.K. Rowling, and it takes place in the world of Harry Potter. I was like, oh, snap. He's like, I love the Harry Potter movies. I love that universe. And I was like, what the heck? This is so cool. And they said, also, this game is unique, one of its kind, because we're launching new technology on the Sony PlayStation, and it's called the Wonder Book. And the Wonder Book is AR technology. And you guys are going to be designing the animated sequences that would end every chapter of this game. I was like, what? Are you kidding me? So this is the Wonder Book. This is for the PlayStation 3. And it was this peripheral, which was blue, and it had all these tracking markers on it. And this is what you would see as the gamer. So this is actually what the game looks like. So everything would be tracked on there, and you have this wand. And you can see in your view, all these things are tracked to it. So it was very early AR technology. It was super cool, so innovative at the time. And then where our stuff took place was in between each chapter. After you finish a chapter, this moment would happen where this now gets projected out of the book, and then you would see our animation there. And then I'll show you a cut down of the work we did. So we ended up doing 5 conundrums altogether and 1 intro animation. So it was a total of 6 animations, which took us about 7 months to complete. So in that 7 months, we had closed off a part of the office because we had to keep it secret from everybody else. Here's some of the process work. We built some of it in 3D, some of it in 2D. This was our shot list. So here are the storyboards. So all of us, all of my team, my interns, my designers, we would all sketch out beats. And I said, you know what? Here's each line. Sketch out any ideas that pop out as we're going through these sequences. So everybody contributed a bunch of these ideas using Post-it notes. So we're just kind of going through them and playing puzzle, trying to see which ideas link up best, which one have cool moments of transitions. And then the team would build off of that. And here's the original illustrations. And you can see this is what those storyboards ended up looking like. Each conundrum would teach you where some wizards or witches had fallen short because they were arrogant or impatient or entitled or whatever it was. And the whole point was to teach you as a young wizard or witch, you should not fall to the same problems that they did. And you should become better than them. That is the early days of me being a creative director at Blind. Now that I have spent a couple of years as a creative director here at Blind, I started to reach a full stride where I became very confident in my communication skills and my ability to pitch and win work. And all of the stuff that I was worried about in the earlier part of my career as a creative director, that was off of my shoulders. The weight of having to know what to say and to sound intelligent and how to speak to clients and to people, all that stuff was behind me now. I felt fully confident and that was out of my way. And the next couple of years, starting from around 2014 and on, I really got to focus on my craft, on my skills, and pushing the work that I was doing to the next level. So I wanted to share just a few pieces that I'm very proud of in this period of my life. So now it's 2014. Now comes along this opportunity where we had some ties to the band Coldplay. We had a connection over there, and we knew as a group, as a company, that we wanted to do a marketing piece, meaning something that is highly visible with a big artist And we usually did this about once a year, where we're taking on a project that we knew is going to be an investment for us of time and energy, not necessarily a profit maker, but something that will be a marketing piece, that will be a calling card for the company. And we've done this over and over again. Back in 2006 and 7, it was the music videos for Gnarls Barkley, and we did the Crazy video. In 2007, it was the Justin Timberlake video, Love Stoned. We're always highly visible, got a lot of traction, and pointed a lot of fingers back at the company so that we can be in the conversations that we need to be and get asked to do more pitches or get asked to do more work. 2014, it was my turn to contribute. The challenging thing with an interactive music video is that you're not just making one linear video, you're kind of making multiple videos. And the way that I had done it, just to make a little bit more sense for me, is to build it out into 3 different tracks. There would be the middle track, which is the closest to reality. So this person is going through the world and it feels the closest to the reality. If you move up a track, in track A, this is the most aspirational one, where things get very dreamy, things are very soft and beautiful and warm, and it feels like this character's long lost love is actually there. She's still there, that you can chase her and find her. And then track C, the bottom, is the dark, depressing version. So all the colors were a lot more muted or a lot more cool and uninviting. And as the viewer, you get to pick and go through this sequence. Do you want to follow the dark path or the bright path? Ultimately, you get to dictate how the music video unfolds, what story happens based off of your interaction. So the idea behind this is that because you have an interactive music video, people will watch it more than once. People will go and watch it the first time and then try a different path the next time and a different path the third time. I actually did a TED talk about my experience working on this project specifically, and you'll see me jumping in headfirst into the deep end, not knowing what I'm knowing, and coming out all right, coming out outside of my comfort zone. So I did this TED talk. It was called Start Before You're Ready, and I'll link to that down below if you want the full story of what happened on this Coldplay Inc. project. If you guys don't know, I love video games. I've been playing video games since I was a young boy, and in my teenage years and even into my college years, some days I would spend 10 hours playing video games. Like, that's how obsessed I was. That's how much I was into it. And all of my life has been a lot of video games. And now comes this opportunity where Xbox comes along, and this was a huge project. So here was this opportunity. Eisenberg had dropped this in our lap, but they said, you know what? We like your work. We heard you guys were good. We had never worked with them at this point, but we're putting you against another company. And this other company was huge. It was a company that I admired for a very long time, and I knew they had over 100 employees. At the time, Blind was only about 20 employees. So here it's a David and Goliath situation, where we're going against the heavy hitters in the industry. And here's me pitching on this thing. But the thing is, like, I really love Xbox. I spent most of my time playing games on this platform. And so I had looked at the material, I looked at the brief, and I started working with my designers, and we crafted this treatment. We submitted the treatment, but before I did, on the last page, I wrote this very heartfelt thank you and what Xbox means to me and what it means for me to be a gamer on this platform. And at the end of it, I signed it with my gamer tag. And a few days later, after submitting the pitch, they said, you guys got this. You guys won the pitch. And the reason why is because we could tell that you guys are real gamers. So that passion, all those many, many years of playing video games, they were not a waste. They came together at this one point, and they served me in this moment because I was feeling authentically myself. I was showing them that, shoot, I'm a gamer. I'm just not a creative director only. I'm a guy who grew up on video games, and specifically these characters, the characters that matter. So this premiered at E3 and got a really good reception there, both from the audience that was present and online. We won a couple of Clio awards from it, and that was fantastic. And I remember getting a message from the creative director at the time, and he said, this is some of the best work that we've ever done. I was like, wow. And from that point forward, we became their go-to studio for everything Xbox. So for the next 4 years, we did everything Xbox. Since I became a creative director in 2011 as a 26-year-old young guy, being not confident speaking to my team, to clients, and understanding how to articulate my thoughts, to this moment here where I'm fully confident in my skills and able to put it all on screen, use all of the technical things that I've learned, all the design and communication skills that I've acquired along the way to put out this, and then to have the public react to it the way that they did. These videos got millions and millions of views. I think over 10 million views. Man, that was it. That was me feeling like, wow, I did something significant as a creative professional. And this was a nice moment, a nice time in my life to celebrate. And that was 2017. And yeah, I've been so privileged to have such a good life, such good experiences, and great people around me who have supported me throughout this journey, from my parents and relatives who bought me art supplies when I was growing up, teachers to really push me and see something inside me, to tell me I could do more and be more and to try harder, to having people challenge me and say, is this really your best? Because you can do better. And then having to go through the ups and downs of wins and failures and wins and failures, and having the shame of closing your company and kind of falling short of all the expectations of you. All of these things have added up. And I'll tell you right now, when I was 13 years old or even younger, I would have never imagined I'd be at this point today. I never could have pointed and said, that's where I'm going to be. That's the job that I'm going to do. I didn't know. At every step of the way, I was just leading with curiosity. I was just trying to see what interests me and go deep until it was dry. And then I moved on to the next thing and then the next thing. And I just kept developing. I kept collecting skills and knowledge, meeting people, and just trying to give full, genuine efforts whenever I could. So I share this with all of you guys because I want you to see that if you go back to the very beginning, you could see my really bad self-portraits, my disproportionate human characters of my classmates that I would draw. They weren't that great. My Photoshop compositions didn't make any sense. I was uncomfortable with a lot of mediums. And I was shy and introverted. And many times throughout my career, I've been tested and challenged. But I've been able to figure it out. I'm not any more special than you are. You have all of the same abilities that I have if you just do the work, if you just show up, and if you learn from failures and just keep pushing forward. I think all of us have these great opportunities in front of us where if you look at the gap in front of you and say, this is the thing that's getting in the way, I want you to reframe it and say, this is an opportunity to close. I can go from where I'm at now to where I want to be. And if you could see that as an opportunity instead of an obstacle, then I think you could really accomplish anything throughout your creative life, throughout your creative career. And for me, even though I'm saying this is the past 20 years of who I am, I'm not done. I'm still a work in progress. And I haven't fully arrived yet. In fact, I've been exploring a lot more personal work in the past 2 or 3 years, things that are a lot more expressive that has nothing to do with the client work that I do. But now I'm getting into this introspective mode where I'm understanding my thoughts and feelings, and I'm starting to put it out there as words and videos like this one and pieces of art, things that represent who I am. And I think I'm starting a new chapter in my life that's all about artistic expression. And I'm very excited. It's very scary. And you can ask anybody here that I get a little insecure still. I'm not fully confident all the time because I'm always in a new place, in a new territory, and I'm exploring new areas that I don't know what the result is going to be. I don't know where I'm going to end up because of all these efforts. I just know that I have to do it. I'm leading with curiosity. And I'm taking it as far as I can until I hit a wall, and then I move on. All right, I hope you enjoyed this series of the last 20 years of my portfolio. If you did learn something from it, let me know in the comments below or share it with a friend. By sharing this video, it really helps us out as a channel to know that you guys value and like this stuff and that we should do more like this. If you have any questions about your own creative career or something that you saw in one of these videos, again, leave us a comment and I'll do my best to answer it. If you want to check out more of me, look up MatthewEncina.com and you can follow me on social at Matthew Encina. I'll see you guys in the future. All right. Oof. All right. Gosh.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
That was a beastly recording, man.
Yes, it was.